One of the challenges of a movie review channel like mine is what I really want to do is talk about obscure exploitation films that I like so that you can learn about them and like them too. Yeah, I'm in the business of helping people. Unfortunately, how are people going to find my channel if I'm talking about movies that very few people have heard of? Well, they won't. So every once in a while I have to talk about a classic movie that we've all seen. But the problem here is, why watch me talk about a classic movie when hundreds of other people have already talked about it? Well, I'm pretty good at this. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob. Today I'm taking a look at The Toxic Avenger from 1984. This wasn't Troma's first movie, but it was the movie that defined their style. And it's a style that I want to talk about today, in particular the comedy writing style. If you think you might want to write comedy at some point, The Toxic Avenger is actually a good movie to study. And since I teach writing and have written comedy myself, I can guide you a bit. Like I said before, ultimately, I'm here to help people. And like I said before, I'm pretty good at this. First off, for those two people out there who haven't seen The Toxic Avenger, let's catch you up a bit. Melvin is a goofy-looking weakling who works at a health club. There's a group of bullies who hang out there, and one day they play a prank on him. One of the girls tricks him into putting on a pink tutu and invites him to a makeout session. But it's not her waiting in the dark, it's a sheep. This, of course, is super embarrassing, and Melvin runs away. He jumps out a window and into a barrel of toxic waste. There is an impressive transformation scene despite the low budget, and at the end of it we have the Toxic Avenger. He's big, he's brutal, and he has a rather friendly voice.
Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I don't know what came over me.
And from here on out, Toxie will punish the evildoers and get some revenge on his bullies. Don't worry, they're also evildoers. Oh boy, are they evil. Okay, but that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk about the comedy writing of The Toxic Avenger. First and foremost, The Toxic Avenger is a parody of superhero stories. This is really obvious and doesn't require much discussion. It's in this long tradition of weakling who comes into contact with radiation and turns into something special. Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, Steve. Yeah, Steve. Gotta love Steve. There's not a whole lot of humor based on parody in The Toxic Avenger, but since 1984 when this came out, there has been a deluge of superhero films, so I expect when the remake of The Toxic Avenger comes out, maybe next year, we're going to see more humor in this parody style. Here, it's mostly just to kind of make the story seem familiar. The original Toxic Avenger is not a pointed satire of superhero stories, it's something else entirely. It's a Tex Avery cartoon made flesh.
I say there, Father, I kind of think that I'm so cute and mink.
In the comedy writing world, this style of comedy is called Madcap, outlandish, clownish behavior. We're used to this style in cartoons, there's plenty of cartoons like this, but there are also some live-action examples of this as well. On the silliness for silliness sake side of the scale, you get things like the Three Stooges and Jerry Lewis, and on the smarter, more satirical side of the scale, you get things like the Marx Brothers and Monty Python. When Madcap is used for satire, like in the Marx Brothers or Monty Python, there's a subtext to it, and the subtext is always, "This is absurd." In the case of Monty Python, for example, if you take a look at the Ministry of Silly Walks, the subtext of this sketch is, "Government bureaucracy is absurd."
With government backing, I could make it very silly.
Mr. Pewdier, the very real problem is one of money. I'm afraid that the Ministry of Silly Walks is no longer getting the kind of support that it needs. You see, there's defence, social security, health, housing, education, city walks.
So between pure silliness and satirical madcap, where does The Toxic Avenger fall? Well, it's kind of in the middle, maybe a bit closer to the Jerry Lewis side of humor. Troma does sometimes go after satirical points on this madcap scale. Something like Poltergeist, Night of the Chicken Dead would be much closer to Monty Python than The Toxic Avenger. It's not that the Toxic Avenger doesn't have anything to say. It has a little bit to say about pollution, bullies, and New Jersey, but it's mostly surface level stuff. There's no deep subtext here, which is totally fine. If you like Tex Avery cartoons, you might like Troma, if you can handle the other side of Troma's comedy writing coin. Shock. With Madcap, if things get too clownish and cartoony, you're going to start to lose wide appeal. And that's doubly true for Shock. If things get too shocking, you're going to lose wide appeal. And Troma is really shocking.
Yes, sure, friend. Just let me introduce you to Ben. Ben? Nova! Hey, Leroy. You know, I always did want to cornhole me a blind bitch.
Not everyone can laugh about shooting a friendly dog and threatening to a blind woman, but for those of us who can, Troma delivers. So we've got Troma's style dialed in, Madcap and Shock. Let's see how they apply these to one of their more famous sequences, the head-crushing scene. One of a comedy writer's best tools is heightening. What this is you start with a joke and you continually add to it, and every time you add to it, you make it more extreme. In the improv comedy world, this is the yes and technique. You accept what the group is doing and you go further. And if you think about your favorite sketch comedy shows, Saturday Night Live, The Chappelle Show, Key and Peele, there's a very good chance that your favorite sketch is successful because it utilizes heightening.
I gotta have more cowbell, baby.
And what makes Troma is they start with something that's already pretty extreme and they find new heights of depravity. And this is certainly true with the head-crushing sequence. We open the scene with our villains talking about the rules to a game. The game is vehicular homicide. Certain groups are worth a certain amount of points. I can't play the audio here because of a lot of racist language. Troma goes hard. But we learn that kids are worth double points. That's the start. Already pretty extreme. Where do you go from here? You run over a little boy.
We got him. We're gonna get him. We're gonna get him.
Oh, but he didn't die. Where do you go from here? You crush his head. We're still not done. There are higher heights to reach in Tromaville, like hopping out of the car and taking pictures. Oh my God, are we done now? No, we're not.
No, I can't. I gotta go home.
What?
Well, I gotta get up early in the morning. Gotta go to church.
Now we're done. And as with all great sketches, it ends in a way that makes it clear to the audience it's the end. The end of a sketch is called the button. But even though this head-crushing sequence did have a button, it's not quite finished yet because Troma pulls out another technique from comedy writing, the callback. A joke that refers to a previous joke. Later, after the button, one of the girls is looking at those pictures and playing with her button. So yeah, this is both a callback and an example of heightening. And it's in this callback sequence that we get to see Toxie's face for the first time. I seriously doubt that's an accident. This is just good writing. It's certainly not the kind of writing that appeals to everyone, but it's also not a surprise that Toxie found a dedicated fan base. Especially in 1984, there just wasn't much out there like Troma. So, I hope that was interesting. I didn't really know what to do with a classic movie like The Toxic Avenger, so I hope this little discussion of comedy writing was fun. If you would like more of this analysis type video, send me a picture of your button.